3 weeks ago, I pulled into my driveway, stared across my lawn, and for a split second wondered if I'd had a stroke or maybe wandered into the world's most pathetic reality TV show. That lot next to my house, the one I bought years ago, as a maybe someday project workshop garden. Who knows now, wrapped up in a bright orange construction fence like some kind of prize. Right in the middle, a brand new sign, future home of Kyle, my neighbor's kid. And no, this wasn't some bad prank. Now, in my quiet corner of suburbia, I'd always thought I had things squared away. My house, my yard, and that half-acre lot, vacant but paid for fenced utilities at the line, waiting for whenever I got around to making something of it. I bought both the house and the lot 5 years back, right before the market went sideways. My plans for the land were always someday, but in the meantime it sat there a blank slate, a little patch of potential. But there's always that one neighbor. For me it was Linda. She moved through our street like she was the self-appointed mayor, organizing events nobody wanted, gossiping like it paid the rent, talking down to everyone as if we'd all missed a memo on how the world really works. And then there's her son, Kyle, 25, still at home entrepreneur, which apparently means he spends most of his day gaming and talking about launching a YouTube channel. For years, Linda and Kyle dropped hints about my lot. Linda would tut-tut, "What a shame all that land just sitting there," and Kyle joked more than once about how he'd turn it into his man cave if I ever got bored and wanted to sell cheap. My answer never changed. Not for sale. Didn't matter. The next time they caught me outside there, it was again. After that last trip, I came home to find my quiet status quo had evaporated. Construction fencing pro sign, and then like a punchline, a letter in my mailbox from the county recorder's office. Notification of a recent deed transfer. I hadn't sold a thing, let alone for the consideration of $1, as the letter said. But there it was, a quitclaim deed on record with my name, my signature only. I'd never seen that paper before in my life. I sat down at my computer, found the county website, and saw it in black and white, my signature. A notary seal, legal language, everything looking official, except for the small detail that I'd never signed. It never even talked to Kyle about selling him the land, and sure as hell never agreed to do it for $1. Some folks would have called the cops right away. Me, I've always believed in keeping my cool. So I walked over to Linda's, found her and Kyle on the porch, glasses clinking, faces smug. She greeted me like she was about to hand me a plate of cookies. I hadn't even asked a question before she started explaining how they'd settled some estate matters, and now the lot belonged to Kyle. She suggested in that syrupy tone of hers that I should really keep better track of my records, and get this reminded me, possession is 9/10 of the law. The condescension was thick as molasses. Kyle, for his part, just grinned and thanked me for the great deal. Linda waved off my questions about the paperwork. Sometimes these things take a while, I'm sure you just forgot. She even hinted that maybe I should get my memory checked, like I'd misplaced a set of keys instead of an entire piece of property. Inside I was seething. I managed to keep it together, didn't threaten, didn't raise my voice, just said I'd double-checked my records and walked away. Heard them laughing as I went, Linda making some crack about people who don't understand legal matters. That night, I buried myself in research. Turns out fake deed filings aren't just sleazy, they're felonies, plain and simple. Digging deeper, I learned that the notary whose stamp was on my forged deed had just had their license yanked for misconduct. Instead of going nuclear, I decided to wait. My gut told me Linda and Kyle weren't done digging their own hole. Next day, Linda made the rounds, telling neighbors all about the great deal she'd worked out with me. She was handing out invites for a lot-warming barbecue, making sure the whole block knew how proud she was that Kyle had finally landed his own spot. Multiple neighbors brought it up to me. Some thought I'd lost my mind selling the lot for a song. Others figured Linda had pulled something fishy. Saturday afternoon, Linda and Kyle went all out, tables, chairs, grill balloons, even a giant banner for Kyle. By noon, people were wandering in, getting the grand tour from Linda, who was clearly in her element. She pointed out where Kyle's tiny house would go, spun stories, laughed with neighbors, made sure everyone knew whose land they were standing on. That Friday night, I made 2 calls, one to a real estate attorney who specialized in title disputes, and another to my old friend Mike, deputy sheriff in the county. Asked if they'd like to stop by for a unique neighborhood event. Come Saturday, I watched from my kitchen, heart pounding as the scene unfolded. Around 2, my attorney showed up, not long after Mike pulled up in his cruiser. We laid out everything, the forged deed, the records, the notary's history security footage from my front porch, showing the notary never set foot on my property, all the receipts. At about 3:30, I grabbed my folder, took a breath, and walked over. As soon as Linda saw me, she broke into a grin, expecting, I guess, that I'd finally come around ready to join the fun. Her expression changed fast when she noticed I wasn't smiling. I stepped right into the middle of the crowd and raised my voice, announcing I had important information about the property. Linda tried to cut me off, insisting this was Kyle's day, but the neighbors hushed her. I laid it all out: how the deed was fake, the notary's license suspended, how filing fraudulent documents was a felony. I showed everyone the evidence, pointed out that any injury on this land would put Kyle personally on the hook, not just for medical bills, but full liability. That's when Kyle's bravado vanished. He turned white as a sheet. Linda tried one last time, insisting I'd just forgotten the sale, but I kept going, pulled out a cease and desist letter from my attorney demanding they clear off the land and stop the nonsense. You could see the wheels turning in the neighbors' minds as the facts landed. Linda hadn't scored a deal. She'd tried to outright steal $150,000 worth of property with forged paperwork. Right on cue, Mike walked up, asked to see the paperwork. Linda tried to pass off her fake deed, but Mike called her bluff. When asked, she stumbled over her story, couldn't explain where or when the signing took place. I played the security footage for Mike, showed my phone records proving I was out of town the day the deed was supposedly signed. Party over. Mike gave Linda and Kyle a formal trespass warning. One more step on my land and they'd be arrested. Neighbors quietly gathered their things and left, murmuring fraud as they walked away. The transformation was instant. Linda, who'd always strutted around like royalty, suddenly found herself alone, exposed. After the dust settled, my attorney outlined my options: press charges, file suit for damages, or settle. Linda lawyered up, but it was hopeless. She had nothing. In the end, we reached a deal. She paid for the removal of all her fencing, fixed the landscaping, covered my legal fees, and to top it off, had to sell her own house to afford the settlement. She even installed a new, oversized "no trespassing" sign herself. Watching her hammer that sign into the ground was almost poetic. Kyle avoided charges. My attorney made the case he'd been manipulated by his mother, wasn't the mastermind. He did community service, went to a real estate fraud class. Linda packed up and left the neighborhood. Within 6 weeks, her house sold at a loss, needing a fast close. Funny thing, the county's investigation didn't stop there. My case kicked off a wider review, found the same notary had been part of a broader scheme. Turns out Linda had tried this before, just not with anyone as stubborn or as meticulous as me. My evidence became the gold standard for preventing fraud, and the county even changed how it handles deed filings with extra layers of checks and certified mail notifications. A few months down the line, a letter showed up from Kyle. Handwritten apology, said he'd gotten a real job, moved out, learned his lesson the hard way. Never did write back, but I kept the note. Seemed honest. My new neighbors couldn't ask for better. Respectful, friendly, no talk of what I should do with my lot. I started a little veggie patch, planted some fruit trees. Every time I'm out there watering or weeding, I remember how close I came to losing that land to a lie, and how standing your ground with patience and evidence is sometimes the only way to see justice done. Looking back, it's wild how quickly your sense of safety can be tested. I always thought the system would protect me. Truth is, property owners have to be vigilant. Public records mail, even the people who smile at you over the fence. The system isn't perfect, but it worked because I paid attention, kept calm, and refused to be bullied off my own land. There's a lesson in all this. Not the kind you'd find in a fortune cookie, something real. Revenge isn't always about shouting the loudest or swinging first. Sometimes it's about letting someone dig their own grave, documenting every shovelful, and knowing that when the dust settles, you've got both the facts and the patience to outlast them. That no trespassing sign still stands tall and bright, a little monument to the fight. Every so often I catch sight of it, and yeah, I smile. Not out of spite, but as a reminder, justice sometimes comes from the most unexpected places, like a backyard barbecue where the would-be thief ends up being the main course. And yet the part I keep coming back to, if I hadn't noticed that fence hadn't checked that mail, would Linda have gotten away with it? How many times does justice depend on who's watching? Who cares enough to push back? Where's the line between trust and foolishness? What about you ever face a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and standing your ground? When does defending what's yours become something more than just pride? I'd love to hear your stories, your takes, even your Linda moments. Share them below. Let's talk about what justice really means and whether we ever see it done right.